This video I want to talk about the healthy way to compete. Um, I always promote no competition. In the martial arts, I feel that when it comes to art, it's not supposed to be competition. It's supposed to be like self-expression, creativity. And meditation to me is like the highest ideal. But I see that we live in a world of competition, and people love sports, people love games. I mean, sports is very popular, games are very popular, and it could be any game. It could be video games, board games, it could be whatever game, you know. People love games. So games, in a way, kind of create competition, you know. And I just want to share my views on like a healthier way to compete within the realm of the martial arts. You know, I think that with the martial arts, you got to be, very much more careful because you're dealing with like lethal techniques. These are like combative techniques that um, could severely injure a person, disable a person, or even kill somebody. So it's not like a um, peaceful game like playing chess or even playing a video game. It's not like a sport like tennis or golf or bowling or basketball. This is something where one of the objectives in combat sport is to really, really hurt the person that you're fighting. In boxing, the biggest thing is like not just punching for points, but to really knock the person out. Like the audience wants to see you knock them out. So essentially you're pretty much encouraged to almost kill somebody. Um, and these are unhealthy forms of competition. Um, when it talk about healthy forms of competition in regards to the martial arts, um, I'm talking about maybe just fitness challenges. See who could out arm wrestle somebody else, or it could be something where see who could bench press more. Who bench presses the most weight to see. Also see like who's like the strongest pound for pound in the bench press, or it could be push-ups. See who could do the most push-ups with proper form and technique. It could be to see who does the most pull-ups with proper form and technique. It could be to see who does the most dips with proper form and technique. It could be who could run the 100-meter dash the quickest. It could be who could run the mile the quickest. You know, it's like you could compete with all these different types of exercises where you're not jeopardizing somebody else's health and well-being. It could also be something like who could just wrestle better than somebody else. Taking somebody down to the ground. It could be something where you know just safer methods. It could be the game of mercy. You know, but when it comes to sparring, this is the thing that becomes very complex. It's more difficult because to me sparring shouldn't really be a competition. It should be like a scientific experiment to see if if the techniques that you've been training in, if they're actually effective and if they work. And then you could also use it as a way of opportunity to hone up on your reaction time and your timing and your distance control and your blocking techniques, your counter techniques. I mean, you're just working on all these different techniques when it comes to sparring or combat to better prepare you for the streets in case you encounter some danger out there. It's just basically like it's just keeping you ready, keeping you prepared. It's like a practice. It's like playing a game of basketball. Nobody is getting hurt, but you're just basically training and to develop yourself. That's how sparring to me should be. It shouldn't be where you're so hurt that you got to go to the hospital, or that you feel dizzy, or you have some immense amount of pain inside, or you know you went unconscious, or you know your head hurts. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be the feel after sparring. You should feel like almost like you got a good workout, or feel like you played a good game of basketball. You still feel healthy, but your body might be a little tired. You challenge your body. um, it's got to be a safer method of sparring. And yes, you need to try your best, because there's really no point of doing it if you're not trying your best. And I think the healthy way of doing it is where people shouldn't feel like they'll be embarrassed or something like that, or a person's reputation shouldn't feel like it's on the line. you know Sparring typically to me should occur within the school. Um, if you're not in the school, an example where I feel sparring the way it should go is just like sparring within your family, sparring your brother, your older brother, sparring your younger brother, sparring your older sister, sparring your younger sister, sparring your cousin, sparring your father, sparring just family members. When you're sparring family members, you're not going to be out there trying to really hurt your own brother. You're just going to try your best to see how well you could do, and then your brother's going to try his best, and then you guys learn and develop together. It's not about it's not really like opposition. Essentially, you're on the same team. It's just that you're helping each other train to prepare for potential violence. And it's like a basketball team that practices amongst themselves in preparation for um, you know playing against another team for the championship. That playing against another team for the championship is pretty much like going to war, or like fighting people on the streets. But when it comes to the martial arts, I feel that you should spar with your family. And when you spar with people outside of the family, it's got to be people where it's like your friends, or people that that you care about, or they're not really trying to hurt you and you're not trying to hurt them. You're just training together. you know and if you don't have a family to spar with, then you look for friends. If you don't have friends that are into sparring, then you go to a martial arts school, and the sparring should happen within a martial arts school. Schools, the way that I view it is, the schools should not be sparring each other. Different schools should not be sparring each other. I mean, you need to find your challenge within your own school. Schools that spar against one another, to me, it's like direct competition that potentially can become very violent, and it's not healthy. It's not safe. It's it's like it's like putting the reputation of another school on the line, and nothing really good can come out of that. And it's just something where I feel that different schools should just um, stick to their own thing and do their own thing, and don't compete with one another. Because this is a violent competition. And that it shouldn't be like that. You should be sparring with your sifu, your teacher, your master, and then your fellow student. You should be sparring within the school. you know that is how I see the healthy way to approach it should be. And it could be just, and then to me, the sparring is, there's no such thing as winning and losing, but you just kind of you know gauge to see how well you did according to your expectations, or just basically monitoring your progress as far as your ability to get away from attacks and deliver attacks, and just um, the fluidity of all your techniques. And I feel that a lot of the training should be focused on your self-development, like comparing yourself to yourself, not really comparing yourself to other people, especially other people that you don't even know, or people in other schools, or people in different states, or people in different countries, or people that passed away like a long time ago. I feel that you should just kind of, if you are to compete, to just compete with yourself, to see, you know like what you did in the past, and see if you could do better than that. And if you are to compete with other people, then it should be people within your family, within your school, where it's like a healthy competition, trying to keep each other on track, keep each other motivated. And another thing about competition, the way that I feel it should be, is like, you should always try, but if you ever quote unquote lose, you should never get upset about it. You should basically just not make a big deal about it, like you really don't care about it. You play as if you do care, but if you win or you lose, you don't care. Like, it's not a big deal. You don't make a big deal of it. you know like, you always remain humble, you know especially if you win. And if you ever lose, it's not a big deal. It's just a game. A game to kind of a fun way to keep you motivated in your training. To just have some fun by seeing, like, who could keep going further. Who could get stronger, who could get faster, who could get more flexible, who could spar with more proficiency. Like, creating these little games within your journey could be a method, a tool, to keep you motivated to excel and reach a high level. But it should never be taken too seriously. And these competitions are just taken too seriously, and people getting hurt, it's getting unsafe, people taking drugs and steroids, and people cheating, and all this sort of nonsense going on that's really not what the martial arts is about. Martial arts essentially is not about any of these games. It's like free from competition. But if you are to compete, then you should be competing in a healthy way, that's going to help you grow and keep you safe. And not just you, but also your training partners and your family, and the people within your school. I feel that if you got the family, you got your friends, you got the people in the school, you don't need to compete with others that don't like you, or that are your enemies, or people that want to see you fail. You need to stay away from those type of people. You need to stay away from that negative energy, and just kind of focus on your own development. And be positive, head towards health, head towards longevity, and stay focused.